This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
What's up, Real MVPs, Ricky Widmer here, along with the Mark Weber.
Dub them ease.
And we are back for another edition of the Onside Kick right here on Most Valuable Podcast. Everything NFL here for MVP. Got a jam-packed show for you guys again. I know Mark is in a happy mood because your Bears just keep winning.
NFC North champs here. Feels pretty good.
They did clinch. They did. Plus, they have done something that you're not used to in a long time.
Beat the Packers.
Beating the Packers.
Actually, they beat the Packers on Brett Favre night a couple years ago.
I'm making a Lovey joke.
It was great.
Because Lovey was like, hey, we're going to beat the Packers, and then he never beat the Packers.
He probably did once or twice.
Not enough, and that's why he got fired as the head coach.
This is actually the first time the Bears have had 10 wins since Lovey Smith got fired.
That's what you were saying. You made that tweet. And we've got a jam-packed show. Got to mention that. We're going to be talking AFC Wild Card Race, Mark. The Colts and the Titans not going to make it easy.
Surprisingly good race.
On the Ravens. We're also going to look at the LA Rams, who are above your Chicago Bears. And
just barely clinging on.
If their fan base should be worried. And then before we make our picks, we're going to look at the Denver Broncos and Vance Joseph, because it's getting to that time where we are, it would be technically, this is Tuesday, so we're 2 weeks away from Black Monday in the NFL, where all those coaches get fired, and then we talk about
have a jam-packed
new
show that day.
Jobs that will be opening up, because there could be a few of them. We're going to look at Vance Joseph, because that could be a job that opens up. Before we get into everything, make sure to check out our Patreon page down below in the description. Thank you to Soapy Muffin, our newest patron. He even commented on Too Old to Game, said that his name could be a whole segment on its own. I've already asked you if you would eat a Soapy Muffin, I don't have to ask you again. Make sure to also, you can support the channel by getting yourself an MVP t-shirt either down below in the description or at mostvaluablepodcast.com, where you can catch MVP each and every day. And then last but not least, please go and rate and review us on iTunes. Do you think we got a new one this week? Because I'm going to do the same thing I do for the Primetime Podcast.
Do you want me to answer my actual answer, or do you want me to say yes for the camera? I'm going to say yes for the camera. I said yes for the camera.
It was a no. Our only one has been by King B. Lang, and he said, great show. Gave us a 5-star rating.
Thanks, bud.
You can have your rating or your rated review read here on the Onside Kick. Go and rate and review us at iTunes and Apple Podcasts. But, Mark, let's jump into the show. First thing we're going to take a look at is this AFC Wild Card Race, because this past week we had a couple games go down. We had the Colts shut out the Dallas Cowboys. We had the Tennessee Titans do the same thing to an NFC East team. They shut out the New York Football Giants. And then on top of it, the Ravens, they go ahead and beat the NFC South Tampa Bay Buccaneers 20-12. All three getting wins, all three at 8-6, fighting for that sixth spot in the AFC Wild Card. And the question that I want to ask you to start the podcast is, the two teams looking out, the Colts and the Titans, will they be able to do enough to catch the Baltimore Ravens in this wild card race?
So here's my thought with this one. My thought is it doesn't necessarily matter.
It doesn't matter.
Right? And here's why. So for Week 16, looking at these teams, I mean, the toughest matchup for all of these teams is going to be the Baltimore Ravens versus the Chargers, right? Because that game is going to be incredibly important for the Ravens. They want to win that game, because if they win that game, they're pretty smooth sailing.
And the Chargers as well, because if the Chargers win and the Seahawks can beat the Chiefs, the Chargers get home field or become the team that has home field advantage throughout the playoffs.
And that's going to be a tough one for sure. So that's going to be a very important game. But for me, it's especially important because I look at a different team that we didn't necessarily mention. That's the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're going to play the Saints this week. And I'm sorry, but there's a good chance they're going to lose to the Saints this week because it's at New Orleans. Very tough to play in the Dome. Very challenging. If the Ravens win and the Steelers lose, all the Ravens got to do once again, win next week. because if they win out these 2 games, they win the division, say goodbye to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So they really have some crucial parts. But when it comes to the Colts, when it comes to the Titans, I'm a little nervous about the Titans being able to make this impact and be able to win these games to go forward. And part of the reasons I say that is like, yes, they're going to play the Washington Redskins this week, and they should win that game. But they're going to play the Colts, the other team in this conversation, for Week 17.
Well, and that's why I'm going to say this is what I'm thinking in my head. And I agree with you. Like, it's really, can they catch the Ravens/Steelers? Because the Steelers do find themselves in this situation because of who they play. Let's say the Steelers lose. That would make them 8-6-1. If both the Colts and Titans win, that will put them at 8-6 or 9-6. That means that they are, I believe, a half game then ahead of the Steelers. It should be because of that tie. 8-6-1 lower than the 9-6. So really, to me, what it comes down to is first the Ravens need to win, because if they win, they can kind of lock up or almost lock up the AFC North. But really, all the Colts and Titans need to do is win. And then in my mind, what's going to happen is Week 17, I was wrong on the game, but I knew it was going to be a divisional opponent. I thought that the NFC North would be a little bit tighter.
AFC or
NFC. I thought that the Bears-Vikings.
Oh, okay.
Way back, I said that that's going to be the game to get flexed into primetime. With the Bears winning that game, probably not. What'll happen, though, is if either the Ravens lose this week or the Steelers lose this week, all the Colts and Titans have to do is win. And that game, Colts-Titans, Week 17, will be our Sunday night game to see who gets into the playoffs. And looking at these two teams, like the tweet that I had lined up from your boy, our boy, Shane O'Mac on Twitter, he hit me up and said, the Colts team really impressed me today, especially the defense, 23-0 over the Cowboys. And it looks like this team is clicking at the right time, because the big question we had before the year about the Colts is, what are they going to look like with Andrew Luck being back? Are they going to have enough? Are they going to have a run game? Well, now you got Mac kind of leading that run game for them. And then you have the Titans. The big question was, how are they going to look in Mike Vrabel's first year? And I know there's going to be Titan fans out there that say, well, guys, you shouldn't have had that question. We were a playoff team last year. There's no surprise that we should be here this year. But both of these teams had so many questions between us at the beginning of the year, and now they find themselves in a position to make the playoffs and be a wild card team.
Yeah, and I actually said that the Titans, if I'm remembering correctly, and those were old predictions, so we'd have to look back. I think I had the Titans squeezing their way into the playoffs. First round getting knocked out, but hey, that's a different story.
Well, and I'm thinking like when Vrabel got hired, and we talked about Mike Vrabel.
Yeah, and to me, it was very much I don't know how I feel. I'm not against this, but I'm not for it. I'm really uncertain. I got to wait and see some things. But the thing for me when it comes to Tennessee Titans is simply that when they win, they look great. And when they lose,
they look bad.
They look really bad. So, it's just difficult. This is a team that I'm never 100% sure. Sometimes the offense is barely getting by. Other times the offense is running, very smoothly, and everything looks great. Derrick Henry's kind of come off so well lately that things are looking really good with that run game, but Marcus Mariota is not really giving a ton of production of what you'd love to see. And with Corey Davis, too, he's starting to kind of come into it, but we're still waiting to see just a little bit more out of Corey Davis.
Let's be honest. The one giving this offense for the Titans that kind of boost late the last 2 weeks is Derrick Henry.
Exactly.
Like I said to Brandon on What's Your Fantasy is the last 2 weeks, ever since that Jaguar game, he's kind of looked like Derrick Henry from Alabama, not the Derrick Henry that we've seen consistently in Tennessee.
Yeah. And that's going to be a big advantage against the Redskins, obviously, but against the Colts, too. I mean, the Colts are a team that's going to be a lot more offensive offensively focused than defensively focused. So a strong run game like that out of Derrick Henry not only is going to help you against that, but it's also going to help keep Andrew Luck off the field.
And you were right, by the way. You did have the Titans as the 6th seed.
Thought so.
You had New England, Baltimore, L.A., the Chargers, Jacksonville, Pittsburgh, and Tennessee were your preseason playoff teams.
I wanted to keep Jacksonville out of the playoffs so badly, and I decided not to do it because I'm like, no, they're not going to pull a Jacksonville. They did.
I had Jacksonville as my 1st seed. I had Jacksonville, New England, Pittsburgh, Denver, L.A., and Indianapolis. So the thing with this one, and it's kind of, I feel it in the conversation even here, is before the season, I was a little bit higher on the Colts.
Yeah.
You were a little bit higher on the Titans. And for me, the thing that I wonder with this Colts team is I wonder if it's the old adage that we hear from time to time, but maybe not really because of Andrew Luck. But how many times have you heard it with teams where it's like, you know what, you could even say it about the Bears this year, where it's like you expect one thing, they outplay those expectations, maybe get to a playoff, win a playoff game, and then you got the fan base thinking like, well, you know what? We weren't supposed to be here. We weren't supposed to be on this trajectory. Now it changes our trajectory a little bit and our projections heading into the next year. I think back to like the Cubs when we made that first run from wild card to NLCS. Oh, we lost to the Mets. It's okay. We weren't supposed to be here. The next 2 years, though, we then expected to be there because of what we have done. Like, this could be that start for both of these two teams. The Colts mainly because of bolstering that defense and getting the young offensive linemen they got in the draft last year.
And just to look at it with what can happen, I mean, you got a team like the Jaguars that have been bottom feeders for years, all of a sudden have a good season. And unfortunately for the Jaguars, they went right back to being bottom feeders. But things can change fast. And Frank Reich, it took a little bit, but he got this team going. He got Andrew Luck moving again. You know, they figured out a run game, at least enough of a run game. They've done what they needed to do to finally get this team moving in the correct direction. It took a little bit, but you know what? It doesn't matter.
They started out 1-5.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what the beginning of the season is. What matters is at the end. Ask the New York Football Giants.
Yeah.
You know, you can go on a roll and go out there and win the playoffs and win the Super Bowl.
And that's the thing that I'm going to say of why, if I had to put my money on it, I would say the Colts get in over the Titans right now. And the reason I say that is, yes, the Titans have been on a little bit of a win streak. Yes, they had, after they went 3-4 coming out of the bye, they got wins over Dallas, who, let's be honest, wasn't the same Dallas team that we were seeing then after they got Amari Cooper. I believe that was Cooper's first game with the Cowboys. They got a win already at home against New England, but then you look at it. They lose to the Colts in Indianapolis. They lose to Houston at Houston. And the last 3 games we've seen, close game, but they beat the Jets. They blew out Jacksonville, who hasn't been good this year. They shut out New York, who hasn't been good. But the one thing that I will say, and I'll give Tennessee their credit for, they basically shut down Saquon Barkley, which no team has been able to do this year. So I give them props for that, although I kind of shoot them with the negative because the Giants have not been the greatest team this year. That I wonder if this Titan team, that it'll be this week, they beat the Redskins no problem, because let's be honest, I even thought the Redskins got lucky last week getting the win that they did, having that pass like bounce around and then get thrown back into like their own guy's hands where it should have been intercepted. And I just feel like that'll be a win on a Saturday game. And then we get to week 17 and a team like Indianapolis, who we've seen after going 1-5, you could say that their schedule hasn't been the easiest as well. Buffalo, but like Buffalo's a weird team that's played up to teams and then's played down. Like, Oakland's kind of easy. You got 2 Jacksonville games, with that one Jacksonville game being a 6-0 loss. Miami hasn't been that good, but they've also shut out Dallas and have beaten Houston in Houston as well. I wonder if it's going to be Titans win easily this week. Week 17, Colts get the win over the Titans.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I got going on. I mean, for me, I have in Week 16, I'm going to assume that both these teams are probably gonna win these games. I mean, Titans can beat the Redskins. Colts can easily beat the Giants. I'm not concerned about either one of those. The two teams get to play each other, so that's the big one. But for me, what makes the big difference is for Week 16, I'll say it right now, the Ravens I have winning out these last two games.
Okay.
For Week 17, really? Oh yeah, definitely. They've got a lot to play for because for them, I mean,
but they got a tough schedule.
They do. Well, they have a tough Week 16.
I'm going to say that Week 17 game, the Browns are going to come to play.
It's at home, though. I'm not that concerned about that.
The Browns are not the Browns this year. The Browns are
correct,
a little bit different.
But the Browns don't have... I'm sitting here looking at it like the Ravens know we have to win these two games or we're not in the playoffs.
And Baker is going to be looking to spoil. That's the wild card to me.
Yeah, but Baker and the Browns are inconsistent, so I'm not that worried. I think the Ravens are a better team. For me, the reason I put them over the Chargers is going to come over for the fact of, when it comes to playing for seeding... You're talking about upsets and being the spoiler. The Ravens really want to be that spoiler, but they also know they have to win this game. So
even though it's away from Baltimore,
that's being a spoiler.
Okay,
that's being a true, genuine spoiler. And I think that the Colts get in. I think that the Ravens have a better chance of getting in right now than the Steelers do. When I'm looking at it,
I'm going to be on the other side of it. I'm going to look at here real quickly. I just want to see with the Bengals. Because they've been a team that early on in the year, I heard so many things from their fan base, and have not heard them since they went 4-1. Let's see. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to go with it. Here's going to be my prediction. I'm going to say that Titans go 1-1. They beat the Redskins, lose to the Colts.
Yep.
The Colts win out in their next two. They're going to beat the Giants this week and beat the Titans Week 17. The Ravens... I'm going to have the Ravens lose. I'm going to be bold. They're going to lose both games. They're going to lose. The Chargers are the game for sure that I know that I feel strong that they're going to lose, but it's that Cleveland game I look at it. And this Cleveland team, I feel like Baker Mayfield is not going to go out just lying on his back. That is going to be a close game. Cleveland, I know it was in Cleveland. I know it was with Joe Flacco, not Lamar Jackson. They only won in overtime 12-9 against that Cleveland team. Those divisional games are usually close. I'm going to say that Pittsburgh, to me, has a better chance to make the playoffs over the Baltimore Ravens. Well, not make the playoffs, win the division. Because the thing that'll be interesting is, so let's see, Colts would be 10-6. The Ravens would be 8-8. The Titans would be 9-7. That would mean that if the Titans go 1-1, Colts go 2-0, Ravens go 0-2, and the Steelers go 1-1, that would mean the Steelers would win the North. And if I'm not mistaken, both the Colts and the Titans would get into the playoffs over the Ravens. So, I mean, to me, there's a small possibility of that even happening for Baltimore, that they lose against the Chargers, get upset by the Browns, and then they're looking on the outside looking in.
I don't think both those teams can get in.
Well, it would be the Ravens would be 8-8.
Doesn't matter because of the Chargers and the Texans and New England.
No, well, you're right. So it would be the Colts.
Only one of these teams can get in.
Then it would be the Colts. It would be the Colts that would get in because they would be at 10-6. I completely forgot that the Chargers would. The Chargers to me, like, I forget that.
Chargers, and don't you forget about us.
No, it's like that thing where, like, last week everyone's like, "Oh, Ricky, don't you know the tiebreakers?" Well, I wasn't thinking about the tiebreaker because the Chargers to me at 11-3, I just think of them as a divisional team. Like, oh, they're going to be a division. It's like, no, the Chiefs are ahead of them. So the Colts would get into the playoffs. Ravens and Titans would be out. Steelers would be. I think that there's, although if I had to put my money on it, I would say Ravens go 1-1, Steelers go 1-1. I think there's a better chance, or a higher chance, I'll say, of the Ravens losing both of their games before the Steelers lose both of theirs.
I'm just feeling that Lamar Action Jackson.
Which is weird because I was really high on him coming out of the draft.
He's looking real good.
And I believe, weren't you one that questioned him? coming
I
out
didn't
of the draft?
necessarily question him. I just loved the joke above him being a wide receiver. But I do have my concerns about mobile quarterbacks.
Wouldn't run the 40.
Wouldn't run the 40. And then the first time he goes out there and plays, what's he do? Runs all over the field.
Mm-hmm. Well, he still is running all over the field. Like, that's a big concern with him, is that people are saying, like, Michael Vick has even come out and said, you can't do that. Like, there's analysts that are like, doesn't he know that RG3 is literally on the bench because the same thing happened to him?
RG3's like, you keep running, boy. You keep running.
You keep running because
I'm going to get my day.
So, just to finalize it, you're saying that with your playoff teams, the Ravens win the division.
Yep.
And then the Titans get in?
Nope. The Colts.
Okay. So you have Ravens winning the division, Colts getting in, where I'm going to say Steelers do enough to win the division, and then the Colts get in for the Colts are going to get in because they're going to win both of their 2 games in mine. This is where you guys come in. Let us know what you guys think down below in the comment section. What do you think with these teams? What's going to happen? Even throw the Steelers in there because them and the Ravens are fighting for the AFC North still. Let us know what you think in the comment section.